Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the joint meeting of the Board of Directors and the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. We'll begin with roll call.
Director Arthur Perry.
Here.
Assistant Secretary Robert Uten.
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer.
Here.
Vice President James Fairman.
Present.
President Michael Schaefer.
Here.
Shane Smith.
Here.
Tom Brenneman.
Here.
Sue Lester.
Here.
Mike McElroy.
Here.
Elodie Katz.
Here.
Andrew Nielsen. Albert Brown Jr.
Here.
And Chair Mike Carey.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'd like to open up the floor to public comments at this time. Do you have any members of the public that would like to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we'll open up the public hearing. First order of business is to receive a presentation from the District Council, Alan Burns, and demographer, Deborah Diaz.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to present tonight. I could turn it over to the PA. I'm available for questions. Thank you, sir.
So hello again, and we're going to, again, situational. We understand that I'm behind you, but it's a little bit easier to do the presentation this way, especially if you need to go back and forth on the maps. So for those that weren't here at the last meeting, we did go over all of the maps, but really, again, just as a recap, that we're doing this because the district received a letter alleging voting dilution and racially polarized voting election system by the Board of Directors. And the district opted to enter a safe harbor process, which is allowed by law, to take the time to determine what steps they were going to address and the issues raised in the letter. So once the safe harbor process was entered, the district outlined 5 public hearings. The first was held on May 31st as a joint meeting between the board and the CAC. The second public hearing was held by the CAC, and the first 2 public hearings are important because it really goes over the process of what districting is, what it's all about, and there are no maps. It's getting that lay of the land of the process and the demographics of the district. The third public hearing was held by the CAC on, and that was the last meeting that we had. And what we did was we had published the maps a week beforehand. They were all available online. And we reviewed all of the maps that were submitted. There was also a revision to one of the maps, which I'll go over later. And there was a really robust discussion that I must say I was impressed with, that everybody really did take the time to look at the maps and get in depth and really dig into the analysis of the maps. And we also looked at the proposed board election sequencing. So today is the 4th public hearing. It's really looking here for a recommendation by the CAC to the board on a recommended map or maps and the sequencing of the elections. So we're going to discuss the maps and the sequencing as we go along. And then next week, we're going to have a public hearing number 5, which is going to be held by the board, at which the board would adopt a final map and the sequencing of elections that's expected to be implemented in the November 2020 elections. And this would all be within that safe harbor process so that you would be protected from further legal action by the end of the safe harbor process. So today what we are going to do is, again, discuss and go over the proposed sequencing and look at the viable maps. And then hopefully there will be a consensus by the CAC to the board at the end of the meeting on the proposed sequencing and the preferred maps. So we're going to start with the proposed sequencing. New divisions would take effect for the 2020 election in November 2020. And that is because the Registrar of Voters needs to have information approximately 125 days prior to an election occurring. So already passed that. So if the board decides to adopt new districts or new divisions for the district, those would not take effect until the November 2020 election. There would be, since there are already staggered terms of the board members, those would be implemented with the existing staggered terms of the board, which is 2 divisions would be up for election in 2020, and then 3 divisions would be up for election in 2022. Any questions on this topic? Okay, then we're going to dive right in. So of the maps that were submitted, there were 6 plans that were submitted by the public, and all have 5 contiguous divisions. 5 were drawn using block group boundaries, and 1, Plan E, was drawn using both block and block group boundaries. 4 have population spreads under 10% of those that were submitted by the public, and 2 have spreads above 10%, Plans D and Plan E. As submitted, Plans D and E aren't viable, and these were discussed and reviewed at the June 20th meeting and will not be included in the formal presentation today because the CAC did come to the conclusion that they weren't viable, and there was a revision to Plan E that was made to make it viable. And again, all of those maps and all of the documentation for the demographic profiles, those were all available, made to the public online, and would be in your agenda packets. So we do have a 7th plan, Plan E, that was made because, again, it was so close to, at 12.58%, it was so close to the population spread. CDR made revisions to that to make it a viable plan because it was so close. Plan D would have had to have so many revisions to it, it just wasn't viable to do it. So we actually have 5 viable plans. So Plan A, one of the submitted maps, has 5 contiguous divisions with a spread of 8.34%. This plan used block group boundaries to create the divisions. Plan B has 5 contiguous divisions with a spread of 5.00% and also used the block group boundaries. Plan C has 5 contiguous divisions with a spread of 3.28% and used block group boundaries. Plan F has 5 contiguous divisions with a spread of 4.12% and used block group boundaries. The revision 1 to Plan E has 5 contiguous divisions with a spread of 3.55% and used the block boundaries, as did the original Plan E. I'm going to go over the data tables quickly. I don't really expect anyone to be able to read this, but just to know that they are there, they are available. This is part of the profile, the 2-page profile for each of the plans. So there's the total numbers of population for each division by race ethnicity, and then there's also the percentage share within each division for those. So Plan A, again, had an 8.34%. There were 2 divisions above the target population and 3 below. Plan B had a spread of 5.00% with 3 divisions above the target and 2 below. Plan C had a spread of 3.28% with 2 divisions above the target and 3 below. Plan F has a spread of 4.21% with 1 division above the target and 4 below. And then Plan E Revision 1 has a spread of 3.55% with 3 divisions above the target and 2 below. These are the criteria that guide the formation and adjustment of division boundaries. First and foremost, the director divisions shall be as nearly equal in population as it's possible, and the plans need to have a spread under 10%. And then you have additional factors that are used to explain any of the deviations from the target population. These are topography, geography. The divisions should be contiguous and compact. And this, we talked about this at the last meeting, so for those of you that weren't here, the compactness is one of those things that has to be taken with a grain of salt because population is not evenly spread amongst usually any geographic area or especially within the district. So even though the goal is to first and foremost have as nearly equal in population, that doesn't necessarily mean that the size, the geographic size, or the square miles or acreage of each division is going to be the same. So if I can just, I'm going to use this map as an example and I'll go back. So this is the map that shows the population density. So there are a couple pockets within the district that have low population, and this is the one that we use that has, is just really the perfect example. There's only 2 people in this whole block group right here. So it's the second largest block group in the district, but whatever district gets that, they're just going to be probably larger just because in geographic size because they're including only 2 population within there. So then we also have communities of interest. And again, beyond the population spread, we're going to look at how do the division boundaries follow different features such as natural roads or built features. You have freeways, major roads, rivers, hills, and mountains. You can also have communities of interest such as cities, neighborhoods, special districts, school districts, school attendance boundaries. Some cities have special zones. They can have an entertainment zone, a downtown, a college area. And then within communities of interest, you can have folks that have shared socioeconomic characteristics. Maybe if there's different issues that folks are interested in collectively, it could be a legislative interest, education, or housing that you're looking at. So again, an example of population density goes, this is a map that could be used and really is used. It's just different colors on the map of the existing numbers that were used for creating the division boundaries. But you can also have things like communities of interest where you're looking at a racial and ethnic group because they have shared interests. Race can be looked at on and it can be considered as a factor when drawing boundaries, but it should never be the only factor. So it can be one of those items of consideration used for a proxy, as a proxy for other items, but it should not be the only one. So again, we have Plan A, 5 divisions, and the largest Hispanic share of the citizen voting age population at 42.5%. Plan B, a percentage spread of 5%, and the largest Hispanic share of CVAP had a division share in as 52.6%. Plan C is very similar to Plan B, percentage spread of 3.28%, and then also a 52.6% share of Hispanic CVAP. Plan F had a percentage spread of 4.12%, and the largest Hispanic share of CVAP population had a 40% share. And then the revision 1 to Plan E, percentage spread of 3.55%, and the largest Hispanic share of CVAP was 32.6%. Just as a sample too, and a reminder, there are other racial and ethnic groups, and they do fall under protected classes within the district. Asians are the second largest protected class in the district, but as you can see, with most of the district being in this single color, one of the lightest shades of peach or tan, whatever you'd like to call it, they have a very even distribution in population share throughout the district. This is again the one that's 2, and that's so 2 out of 2, 100% share. That's why it's in the darkest rust color or brown color, if you will. So things like that can be considered. And then again today, the job of the CAC, even though it's a joint meeting, we're really looking for a recommendation to the board to see if we can get a consensus on a preferred map that you would recommend to the board, and then propose sequencing for the election cycles. I will remind folks too, we had a discussion at the last meeting of possibly renumbering the districts to make it a north to south, high to low numbering. We would deal with those after a particular map was selected, and then looking at the staggering of the sequencing, possibly because it's 5 divisions, if you have 2 divisions up for election in 2020, maybe the evens 2 and 4 would be up in 2020, and then stagger it with in 2022, the other 3, the odd division numbered ones, would be up in 2022. So I would just say there was discussion, and it was included in the notes of the meeting minutes as well. That can be talked about, but don't get too much into the weeds on that one, because that will have to be figured out afterwards, and even possibly with the registrar of voters. So with that, I will open it up for discussion. And again, we have the maps that we can toggle back through. And are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question if I may.
Yes.
I'm going to direct this to council. We talked from the very beginning about the fact that no matter which map is selected, and Deborah, I guess I'd ask you this as well, in 2020, there will be a new census taken, and all of this will have to be redone. So my question, Alan, to you would be, what if we were to say to Mr. Shankman? Pardon. Okay, Mr. Shankman, that we have a plan, a proposed plan, but we don't want to waste the ratepayer effort in doing this now when we're going to have to redo it again in a year and a half. What do you think his reaction would be? Not to put you on the spot, Alan.
Yeah,
I don't wanna put you on the spot.
yeah, not putting myself in his mindset, I'm not sure. He would certainly not be happy with, oh, we'll just do it in 2020 then. He wants you to do something this time.
Okay.
Whether you could work something out with him that, I don't know how you'd work it out. You'd have to do the study again, so it seems like we'd have the expense again. Some part of what we do is usable, so we'll have to do the adjustment. Maybe the study's not that as expensive the next time around because we've already laid the groundwork.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure his reaction is going to be, I have one answer for you. You need to adopt divisions.
Okay.
He's pretty well resistant to any other solution.
I didn't hear that last. He's pretty well what?
Resistant to any other solution that you might propose, including public outreach, cumulative voting, all sorts of things.
Lester?
Once the census numbers come out, I know it's redone every 10 years, but doesn't it take another year anyway for all that information to filter through? So wouldn't it be more like 2021 that we would actually be doing something with the information, so we wouldn't be able to have anything take effect to 2022? And I think when it comes to a lawsuit for a guy that's already won millions of dollars, it's not a good bet to wait.
She is correct on the timeline.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Sue. I agree. I think that's what he would use. But I just thought I'd throw it out there.
I don't know who to ask this, but is it true that every time there's a census, the division boundaries have to be considered? I mean,
Yeah, it is recommended that after every decennial census, once the data is released, and Sue is correct, that the data should be released approximately in April of 2021, a year after the census occurs. And then it is recommended, but there isn't any requirement for special districts that I'm aware of. The congressional, those do it and are required to. But what you would do is the existing conditions, you would take the boundaries that you have, if you do adopt them now, and then you do an analysis and look at the percentage spread.
there would have to be a study done.
There would, but it would be, since most of the legwork is already done, the boundaries are there. You do a simple report and look at that population spread, and if it's under 10%, then you really don't have to. Then it's a voluntary thing if you'd want to.
And just to follow up on that, there may be some districts that have not done the adjustment as they're supposed to do, and unless somebody sues them, they're just out there whistling.
Right.
Is there any other than the federal census, is there any other information available from the city or any other kind of registration that would give us a sneak peek as to, the chances that the spread would still be under 10% come 2020 relative to what it was in 2010?
The census does what's called the American Community Survey every year. The small area data, which is block group that we're basically dealing with here, is released annually, but it's a 5-year average. So the data that was released in 2017 is a 5-year average from 2012 to 2016. That's also at the full block group level. There were a couple block groups on the perimeter of the district that were outside, but again, because we have information from the census block data, you can remove those blocks and then create an allocation, if you will. So there's the blocks that are in, the blocks that are out. Block group called our ACS. So you could look at it. For example, CDR collects housing data from each of the jurisdictions as to what the housing construction and demolition and where they occurred at the parcel level. So we actually create annual estimates at in a sense, you could do it at parcel level, but we know where all the housing growth has been. We control that data to the Department of Finance official population estimates. They have all sorts of information because they are the state. They have birth and death records, DMV, IRS, things like that. So it could be looked at, but it would take a lot of work. It would take an extensive amount of effort. So one of the things that sometimes folks look at is, okay, if there was a lot of growth, for example, in, and I can't remember the maps, but say there was a lot of growth here in a lot of housing growth or several apartment complexes that were built here in Plan A's Division 1. You would expect that those apartments or houses would be occupied and there would be more population in there. If there were 100 apartments built and say that would be 3 persons per household or whatever the average is for that area, an extra 300 people. When you're looking at the divisions, you might want to say, oh, we want division number 1 to be at that target or maybe a little bit lower. It's okay if it's lower. If it's already in the high end, creating a population threshold that say is it 7% and it's going to push us out, then you'd be looking at probably needing to do revisions to the boundaries or go through a redistricting process after the 2020 census. So those are those kind of things to keep in mind. It's not official in that list of topography, geography, compactness, but it's one of those, hey, if you built, for example, Costa Mesa has had activity spread throughout the city, but if you're in Irvine and you're building tens of thousands of units and if they were doing divisions, you'd say, okay, you know that division on the north end, where the Great Park is, the Great Park neighborhoods, you probably want those divisions to be on the lower side because you know that there's going to be population growth there.
It's interesting, and I think it's important, and would be incumbent upon whichever board is sitting here after the 2020 census to take a hard look at what's happening in Costa Mesa, because we've seen this urbanization, this growth of multifamily that's happening, particularly on that map, for example, in area 5 and 1. So we're going to see, I mean, there's only 2 people in that one block that you talked about. Knowing what's happening in this city, in 5 years, that could explode with we're seeing them right here. I mean, this is part of that block. There's places going in along here. So I think as far as the change, and Sue, you made a really good point, because it does take a long time for that data to come back. But I think who's ever on this board needs to have a hard understanding that that's going to change if things continue to happen the way they are in this town. So I think that has to be accounted for as we look forward with these divisions. Just a thought.
One more question for Deborah. Everything you said, it could be more difficult to be predictive in terms of collecting all that available data than to just maybe do the process again in 2021.
Oh, yes. And again, with that, once the decennial census data is out, the redistricting data file, that's the file to use. You don't use, yeah. Questions on the maps, the process?
I don't have a question. If everyone's done with questions, I have a comment. Everyone done with questions?
The floor is yours.
Based on the great detail we went into on all of these maps last time and kind of what it seemed like the committee came to the consensus over, I would like to make a motion that the committee recommend Plan B to the board for a number of reasons. Plan B has only a 5% spread, but if you look at the layout of that map in comparison to all the other maps, the lines are very clean and easier to explain in terms of districts. And it also, what I liked about it was it took some neighborhoods and split them up, which would give each neighborhood or some neighborhoods dual representation if their neighborhood was split among district members. And also, it does give the Hispanic community a high percentage in one of the districts. So if they were to pool their power to elect somebody to represent them directly, they would be able to do that, which is greatly in part, I think, why we're even having this conversation. So I would like to throw that out there. I'd like to make a motion that the committee recommends Plan B to the district board for consideration.
We have a second on that motion, or would anyone like to second? So we have a motion and a second to support Plan B.
Mr. Chairman, before you,
Discussion?
Before you make any vote, I think you need to accept public comments and then close the public hearing before you take action.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment regarding this?
Do I need to withdraw my motion until the public is able to speak? No. Okay.
Chair Carey and President Schaefer and members of your respective bodies here. My name, as you may remember, is Jim Mosier. Of the maps that you have before you, I think map B is an excellent map. I continue to not think that elections by division are particularly in the interest of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. If you think about it in this system, each of us here this evening under this system will get to vote for one position on the board every 4 years. To me, that doesn't seem quite as democratic as getting to vote on all the positions on the board and having a chance to vote every 2 years as we do now. So to me, it's kind of a step backwards. And that is one of the many reasons that I would suggest an alternative system, which was, I suggested before, limited voting on a district-wide basis as an alternative solution. I'm not sure that the fact that you're under the gun to have to commit to the district by division system this month or this year means that before 2020 you couldn't consider some other system. If you can change the voting system today, surely between now and 2020 you could choose some other system. So I'm not sure the issue has to entirely end with doing something to satisfy the lawsuit. That's one comment I wanted to make. And then the other comment I wanted to make, no offense to our current board that we have, but I think the idea of term limits, which the demographer said was kind of not relevant to what you're talking about tonight, to me I think is relevant and might be part of your recommendation. The board may reject that recommendation. The reason I think it's relevant is, if I recall the letter that I saw from Mr. Schenkman, his reason for thinking that there might be racially polarized voting here was looking over the names of directors that the district had had for the last many years. He did not see any Anglo names or Latino names among those. He saw mostly what he thought were Anglo names. However, he would not have seen a whole lot of names because we don't have a lot of turnover in the board because we don't have term limits. If we had term limits, we would have more names appearing and more chance of Latino names appearing, and perhaps his argument that we're having racially polarized voting is not valid. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. Are there any other comments or suggestions from the members of the advisory committee or from the board? Hearing none, we currently have a motion.
You still need to close the public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Okay, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. Hearing no other comments from the committee or from the board, we have a motion on the floor to support Plan B of the maps provided to us. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of supporting Plan B, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? No. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, if I can just remind the CAC that you also were asked to make a recommendation on the proposed sequencing of the election cycle. So this is the proposed sequencing that staff developed based on the existing staggered terms. And so if the CAC does have an opinion or a recommendation to the board on this, as even if it's a yes or no, up or down, we would recommend that a motion be made on this topic.
I'd like to make a motion that we take the recommendation and we do 2 divisions up for election on even, and then the odd number of seats available on the odd number years. It just makes it easier to keep track of. Is that what you're asking? Yes.
board adopts this, if they do adopt this, that when they number the districts, they would do so such that 2 and 4 would be up for election in 2020.
Yes, that's what I said very poorly. So yes, thank you for restating that.
I will second that motion with that clarification.
Okay, would any members of the public like to comment on the proposed sequencing?
I have a text message. Deborah, back to your comment about the sequencing, numbering them north to south or whatever.
If I just, for the folks that weren't here last meeting, I'll show the example, which is, for example, Plan F, where it has Division 1 at the bottom, and then 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. They were talking, an example of this would be renumbering from north to south if it coincided with those elections, having 1 on the north side and 5 to the south. So it kind of has a north to south flow. But again, the numbers are not important at this time. And then when the board adopts the maps as well, or the map as well, the numbering that can be dealt with and renumbered, it's really the boundaries that should be taken into consideration.
In essence, we're not going to have true divisions with individual representatives until the election of 2022. Is that right?
Yes.
There'll be some overlap, and I think that might have even been mentioned, but with 3 members up for election, or 3 positions open this year and 2 in 2020, the 2 in 2020, how do we decide which divisions are up for re-election or up for election?
So, for example, if division, say 3 and 4, had the 2 board members that are up for election in 2020, right now you can know who is going off, or not going off, but in November of 2018, who the 3 are in 2018. And I know I have it written down somewhere, but whoever the 3 are in 2018. So say if it was 1, 5, and 2, these 3 here, and say there happened to be the 3 board members lived in these separate 3 divisions. Then in essence, the person that would be running, though they're not in effect, you could by default say that X person is Division 2, Smith is Division 2, Jones is Division 1, and Depp is Division 5. If 2 board members happen to live in Division 4 together in 2020, when this actually takes effect by divisions, then they could run against each other, or whoever else. That would be the first time the board members that are elected in this Division 4 and this Division 3 would actually have a district identifier next to their name post that. And then, like you said, by 2022, after that November election, each board member on the board would have a division identifier behind their name or next to their name.
On that note, I think we confirmed at the last meeting that we hadn't voted on it yet, but D was the time we were leaning towards, and that the 2 members that would be up for election in 2022, in fact, live in 2 different divisions.
Okay.
So barring any resignations, it would largely
Yeah,
take care of itself.
I had sort of sketched that out.
But I guess for 2 years, there would be kind of a scenario in which not necessarily every district is represented, but it's a phase-in period, I guess.
And that's very common. So, for example, the city of Anaheim, just because I had been looking at our report on them, they have, I think, 3 or 4 council members that have the division numbers next to their name, and they're represented. Everybody else is basically at large until they hit the next election cycle.
You
So,
say it that way, at large makes it relevant. or
That's
not
what's
relevant,
happening
makes
at
more
Costa
sense.
Mesa. We have a couple of
Same with our
at-large.
city council.
City council's the same way.
I just wanted to make the comment that even though the people that are up for election this next time are in different divisions based on what we recommended, that had nothing to do with why we recommended what we did. And I think it's really important that people know that, because that really had nothing to do with anything. That's just how it worked out.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Okay, we have a motion on the table a motion and a second to support the proposed sequencing of elections. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to call a vote. All of those in favor of supporting the proposed sequencing of elections, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next up on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of our June 6th meeting. Have all of you had an opportunity to review the minutes that were provided to us? Is there a motion to approve those minutes? June 6th?
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes for June 6th, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next is the approval of the minutes of our June 20th meeting. You all had a chance to look at those. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from June 20th?
I make a motion.
Who's it? Should get that now? Okay. Motion second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. The next item up on the agenda is the goals and objectives of the Citizens Advisory Committee. This is based on a meeting that President Schaefer and I had with Scott Carroll, General Manager of the district. We developed a list of 18 items that the Citizens Advisory Committee might address or be interested in looking at or entertaining during the course of our tenure here. I believe, Scott, did you have a...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sure. If my staff can pull up the list. So, as Chairman Carey mentioned, according to Section 3D of the CDC handbook, each year the chair will meet and consult with the board president and general manager to determine the district goals and objectives for the following year and then convey those needs to the CAC. On June 13th, Chairman Carey met with President Schaefer and myself to discuss potential topics, and we came up with this list up here for you to consider. And so what we are seeking tonight is to see if you approve this list, and if there's any items on here you think as a president that needs to be discussed ASAP in the next 6 months, and let us know, and we'll bring that back to you. There are some items on this list that will be discussed later in the year. For example, the solid waste and wastewater rates. We do have an RFP out right now to hire a consultant to do a study on the solid waste rates. However, if you want to still have a discussion about rates in the past, we can still do that for you. But most likely, there is going to be a rate increase in the solid waste rates. So that's why we have to do a study. So when the consultant comes up with some recommendations, we'll share that with the community, get some directions from you. So that's one that'll be later in the year, possibly maybe the beginning of the year. Another item that I also want to mention, on item number 10, the Goodwill or Salvation Army drop-off events. We've been working closely with Mike Carey on this event. In fact, if you look at our website, it is planned for August 18th. It's a clothing donation event, and we can share with you before the 18th a little overview of that event. We did it about 3 years ago. About 3 years ago, it was very successful. So this is our second time we're doing it. Very excited. We thank OCC and Mike for partnering with us on that. So that's on August 18th. But we can, if you want to discuss that before that, we can do that. Also, like the CR&R performance audit, every year we review their contracts to make sure they're in compliance with the terms of their contract. and then we share that with the board. We usually do that in the fall. Again, we could bring that to you in the fall and get your suggestions, recommendations before we send it to the board. So those are some of the items that we usually do late in the year, but it's really up to you. So we're kind of seeking direction on which, one, if you approve this list, and then two, what items do you want us to bring back to you with the next 6 months within the year. So, and then if we can also discuss what goals and objectives you're trying to achieve. Is that to discuss changes in the programs, make any recommendations to the board? Also like to have that kind of discussion today as well. So happy to answer any questions. Yes.
So in general, in the past, this was a board's responsibility, or was this management's responsibility, or whose responsibility in general? You don't have to go through each point.
A lot of it's staff driven. We would take it to the board and get their direction and their support or approval. But most of it has been staff driven. Occasionally the board will request a specific item, and then we'll put that in the agenda. But most of it is staff driven. Yes. Yes.
On the list, and
yes, I think.
Something that we would want to consider as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is on that list. If you scroll down a little bit.
Okay. Environmental Academy.
Yeah, there it is, number 12. Yes, it is on there. Yes, yeah, we definitely. In fact, staff is planning our next academy in September. So we'd love to hear your comments. A lot of you have participated in that last May. We'd love to hear your comments, suggestions on anything we can change or improve. We'd greatly love to hear from you.
Scott, I think it's important to. This list, when Mike and Scott and I met, these were just the ideas we discussed. This is not in priority order. I mean, wherever you guys want to go with this is what we're looking for direction on. Is what interests does the CAC have, and where would you like that discussion to go for your benefit and ours?
I had a question on the reporting regarding capital improvement.
Yes.
I understand, I see it involves pump stations. Does that also include things like just the sewer lines, just the pipes? And
Yes. Yeah, it's all. We don't have any capital improvements for solid waste, so all our capital improvements is in the wastewater side. So that's the pipes, that's the pumps, the pump stations, the wet wells, all that stuff. Yes, and we do have a CIP plan every year. We take it in the budget. We're more than happy to share that with you, or if there's something you think we need to address, we're like to hear from you. Yeah.
One other question, and it might be some overlap with items you guys already outlined, but having joined this committee, we've learned a lot about the difference. Some ratepayers are solid waste customers, and some are sewer only.
Yes.
And those sewer only customers don't have some of those great solid waste programs available to them, like large item disposal or recycling.
Right.
And not that we can necessarily just grant them those programs, but I think at our first meeting we talked about maybe looking into ways that those programs could be extended to
Okay.
the community.
Okay.
So I don't know, I don't want to speak for the committee, but maybe that's something that we could also talk about in the future.
Sure. Let me write that down. Absolutely. That's a good suggestion.
One of the things that I mentioned to Mike and Scott, and again, not trying to influence, but I think you need to hear the input, is that area in the middle. Nolani or Gene, whoever's doing it, could you scroll? It's item number 9. Those items there are, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say those are the fluff things that the district does. And there's a lot of interest in the community in all of those programs there. So I think a discussion of and getting you all familiar with how all of those work would be beneficial. I mean, that's the stuff that, that the community knows that, my grandkids know that when they flush the toilet, there's a pipe under the house that we were, but when I talk about, we talk about the battery recycling program, for example, the kids go nuts. They love it. So from my standpoint, that's an area that I would like to see how all of you feel about those things.
Well, those items are more consumer facing.
Yes.
One question I have, is this a long list of items?
Yes.
Some of them, Christmas tree recycling, I don't think we're real worried about that in July.
Correct. We would do that.
Could this be put together, say, in a quarterly list
Yes, correct. That's good suggestion. We can do that, absolutely. Do you want us to do that and bring it back, or do you want to? Is there any items that are sticking out that you want to discuss next month or anytime soon?
Well, one question would be, when we are done with this districting process, will our meetings be monthly?
That's the next item on the agenda. Yes, and that's something we'll be seeking also. Is we would like to schedule a standard date and time, and that'll be discussed later. Yes, correct.
I think some of the programs that are being identified that directly affect the schools is something that if it's an item of discussion that we'd like to talk about, we should talk about that prior to the school year starting, so that those programs could be fully implemented early on in the school year.
Okay, very good. Yes, definitely.
Is the organics program on there? Yeah,
I don't.
2020 deadline for us and the city.
I don't see that.
And the interaction between us and the city to achieve that goal.
Sure.
Oh, in 2020, the state statutorily we're required, the city is required to be at 75% recycling. And we're currently around the district is currently around 60-some%, and I don't know what the city is. We report our data. The residential input to that data is about 17% of the total. So industry and commerce are the other 80-some%. So we report our data residentially to the city, and they report to the state. So the city is required to meet that 75% reduction in tonnage or per capita tonnage, or a lot of stuff around that thing. But there's a 75% criteria that the city has to concur with, has to be at in 2020. Not too long for now.
Nolani, can you scroll up to the top, please? One program I do want to present to the committee real soon is the #1 performance measurements, and that's a brand new program we're going to be implementing and getting hopefully board approval. I'd like to get your comments. If you've never heard of performance measurements, it's the business community's been doing it for years, and the government entities are doing it. Not all of them are, but it's a way for staff to measure how well we're performing, how efficient we're being. It's a way to share with the public and to the board areas that need improvement. So we set some outcomes and some goals, and we try to achieve those outcomes. And if we don't achieve them, then we come up with a plan on how we achieve it. We've been working with my staff for several months on this program. We're about ready to kick it off here, so I'm really excited to share it with you and with the board. So if that's okay with the committee, that's one of the items I'd like to share with you real soon. So.
Are there set areas for the performance measurements?
Yeah, set areas. It'd be like it's all encompassing our operations. So it includes obviously solid waste and wastewater, includes finance, includes our permits, includes code enforcement. So it's all our organization. The program is supposed to intended to be really easy to understand, because I've seen some performance measurement programs where it's like a binder, and it's just. Why would you want to read it? So hopefully, once you see it, and you'll agree that it's easy to understand. The data is we can support the data. We can support it, and it demonstrates our performance. So I'm really excited to share it with you. I'm looking forward to hear your comments about it. So.
Another thing I think we ought to consider briefing the committee on is a citizen survey.
Yes, good idea. Yes. Yes, good. Yes, that is good.
5 or 6 years ago.
Yes, we did one in 2012, and we did one in 2016, and we plan on doing another one in 2019 next year. So in 2012, we did a phone survey. We hired a consultant and did a phone survey, surveyed 1,000 residents. 1% of our households. And so we did 1,000. In 2016, I think we did 350 or 500 because of the cost. We lowered it down. But before we submit that survey, we meet with the board and what kind of questions do you want to ask the community? So we will do that with you. What kind of questions do you want to ask the community? What are you interested in learning from the community? So that's a really good suggestion, Director, and we'll definitely include that on the list. So if I don't hear anything, is it okay with the committee? Maybe I just meet with Chairman Carey and we decide which items to present to you if I don't hear anything really calling.
It sounded like maybe
School programs.
Detailed report for the performance measurement.
Okay.
Maybe
School programs, sure. Good.
And then maybe like prioritizing.
And I'll bring it back. I'll put it like Mr. Brandon said. I'll put it in a quarterly report. Here are some items that we discuss on a quarterly basis. I think that'd be good. That's a good suggestion. Yes.
Andrew, you didn't like the way we set this up. You didn't expect the three of us to prioritize, it, especially with me involved.
We were just spitballing.
No, it's a great idea.
Okay.
Is the budget discussed?
We do 2-year budgets. So we just started a new fiscal year, 18-19. So we're in it right now. We'll start developing that budget in January 2019. We will bring the draft for you for your comments and suggestions. But yeah, that's definitely on the list. Yep.
Just one quick thing. Nolani and I talked earlier. If you look at item number 13, the state of the district, we've undertaken a state of the district event. We did it last year, and we're getting it ready to go for this year. We invite the public in general here to listen to what's going on in the district. You guys are going to be a big part of that because we're going to make sure the public knows the good work that you're doing. So that's going to be part of the early discussions too, because we want to talk about the things that you as this committee want us to portray to the citizenship. So I think 13 is one that we need
Definitely.
to kind of have up there early too.
Definitely. Okay. Good question. Yes.
When we saw water merger that was on the ballot, I don't remember what it was.
Would you like me to?
Well, actually, we have some news coming out on this in the next couple of days. Yeah, so it'll yes, it's we have some good news. So the press release will be coming out pretty soon. Yeah, yes.
Good news, depending on which side of the aisle you're on.
Yes. Okay. Anything else? Okay. I think I have my direction. Thank you. Thank you.
One last thing.
Yes, sir.
This list, either before or after it's quarterly or if it is prioritized, do we get copies?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Next up on our agenda is talking about our meeting times and dates and how often we want to do this.
Can I make one comment on that?
Certainly.
I had accidentally created a lot of these meeting invites from my phone because it's smarter than I am. That included next week, and I titled it the CAC meeting, but if I'm not mistaken, next week is a board meeting. So I deleted that event, but of course the CAC would be welcome to come to the board meeting.
Absolutely.
We won't be meeting as a committee to the best of my knowledge.
Correct.
So in case anybody was planning on next Thursday, that's not a CAC meeting. I wanted to.
That's why I got that. That's why I got that email.
Right. Okay. Good.
Smart phone.
Yes. Thank you. That being said, I'd like to open a discussion of how often the committee thinks that we should meet. And then once we have that information, we can decide on a time and maybe a day of the week and where that falls within each month. Recently, we've been meeting on Wednesdays. Based on the turnout, that seems to work or not be a hindrance to anybody. No, the city council's on Tuesdays. Planning commission's on.
Yeah, actually, I think Arena's. So the 4th Thursdays of the month is the regular board meeting. We are in. So the Costa Mesa City Council, they're renovating their council chambers. They're putting in some new AV systems, so they're looking for other locations for their commissions and city councilmen. We're in discussion now with the city of possibly having the planning commission used in this room, and that'll be the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. So you might want to keep those. You want to stay from that too. So that'll be like we're still in discussion with that. So I think like Chairman Kerry says, Wednesdays I think are good for us.
Consideration didn't address trying to use Wednesday. Is that right? That's what you said.
Yes, Wednesday. I think Wednesdays work well for staff, and if it's okay with the CAC, you know, it's good to set like a specific, like every third Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m. so that way it doesn't confuse the public. You know, we don't want to keep changing the dates and times because we want to be consistent for the public.
I think we should. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, seeing the ambitious list that you guys put together, I think that quarterly would probably be too infrequent, and monthly might make sense. At least until we start to really prioritize and attack that list.
I agree.
I definitely agree. I think maybe in like 6 months we can reassess, but
absolutely
monthly is going to be like the best.
I do think we should avoid in consideration of the board, I think we should avoid the Wednesday preceding the board meeting.
Okay.
To support staff as well, so not 2 nights in a row.
Do the first Wednesday of the month.
Whichever's easiest for you. You just let us know. You want the first, second Wednesday of the month?
First Wednesday of the month.
Is that a motion?
No, what?
I put the motion out there.
No, the first Wednesday of the month, well, I have a meeting that I go to with the sanitation district.
Second Wednesday of the month?
Yeah, but
That would be our only other choice.
Second or third?
Second Wednesday.
Is that a motion?
so which is it, second or third? I need one. What day? Which one is it?
First motion.
All right. Nice
So-
job.
By the way, before you go making all these changes because of Director Uten, he doesn't have to be here at these meetings.
Are we aiming for August for our first meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Second
Yes.
might make sense because it's roughly a month.
Right. Okay. I like that. Is there a second to the second?
So
Second Wednesday of the month.
second Wednesday.
The second Wednesday of the month. Okay, motion and a second for the second Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. Discussion, further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That was easy.
Thank you.
One further question.
Yes.
Would the meeting have a standard ending time? Would you have to vote to go beyond that, or open-ended?
We have been doing these kind of open-ended. I know Andrew's calendar invite indicated an hour and a half. That might be a good target.
It's totally up to you. If we're running 2 hours in a meeting and you feel tired, and we could always delay any kind of action and meet another time if you want to. It's totally up to you. I don't foresee us taking longer than 2 hours in a meeting. I really don't. So.
I haven't seen one since I've been here.
Yeah.
When the board meets, do they meet until all businesses?
Yes, they do. They do. They do. But we're usually done by 7:30. We're 2 hours. Again, it's about 2 hours.
Yeah. Thinking how long Director
Yeah.
Uten talked.
For your evaluation,
About-
here an hour.
I asked that question based on the way the city council does it.
Oh.
I don't think you.
Oh, we're not.
Don't have to worry about
I don't
that.
think you'll ever be here past midnight.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I won't.
I think an hour and a half maybe is a good goal.
6 to 7:30.
Sure.
Let's shoot for that.
Okay. That'd be great.
Make that a personal goal to get to
Okay.
the agenda.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so that motion carries. Next up on the agenda, I'm kind of happy to see this. We'll see how happy the rest of you are. Consider using paperless agendas. By doing that either on your tablet, phone, or other electronic means. I'm always encouraged to see the board using their iPads for their agendas. That's a great lead on all of your part, and staff as well. Maybe we can open up a discussion on the ease or difficulties of that. And I think we're just talking about the agendas.
Yeah, if you mind, I could do a quick presentation on this. Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, our goal is to be a zero waste organization, and in 2011 we implemented a paperless agenda program. Prior to 2011, we were old school. I mean, we would print hundreds and hundreds of papers for our agendas, and it was madness. It really was. And so we went paperless, and we had iPads for the board. Over the years, with the help of Nolani and her staff, we progressed into using what's called board docs. It's a web-based system where basically you can pull up the agenda and staff reports anywhere you have a tablet or a desktop, on your cell phone. It makes it really easy. And so the way it works is that, so that's how we write it. We write all our staff reports on board docs. And then Nolani and her staff, she puts the agenda together. And once it's together, she uploads it on our website. And there's a link on the website. And then we notify the public and the board that's now available for viewing. So what we encourage you to do is go on your desktop or on your tablet and download the agenda, and you can read it at your home or wherever you want to read it. You read it there. Then when you come to your meeting here, instead of printing up all the pages, we encourage you to bring, if you have a tablet like Chairman Carey has, we encourage you to use it. But if you don't have one or if you don't want to use one, we do have tablets. And we can have these tablets available for you at your meeting. So when you arrive, we'll have it set up where you're sitting, and we'll have the agenda already. You just have to push the button here, and slide, and you can open up the agenda. And that way, you don't have to print anything. We don't have to print anything. It achieves that goal of paperless agenda. If you're okay with that, so happy to answer any questions.
Now, backup documents, are those linked to agenda items?
Yes, they're all there. Yes, you just click on a button and it'll download the staff report, any kind of attachments. Yes. Yeah. So like here, Nolani, can you click on? So, click. Yeah, scroll down to the bottom of over the bottom. So there's so you just click on that and it pulls up all kind of attachments. So yeah, it's very easy to use. Very easy. Absolutely. Yes, we can connect you. Yes, definitely. Yep. Yeah. So.
And then you'd also project up here.
Yes, correct. Yeah, we do this for the public, so the members of the public don't bring their laptop. They can see it up here too as well. Great. Okay.
Can I just make one comment? I do think it's a worthwhile goal, and I would be willing to commit to it. In my place of business, we try to do that as well, but we found that some people bring their tablet or computer and are doing anything but paying attention to the agenda. So we're all adults and we're all serving on this committee voluntarily. I would just maybe say that if you're one that can't succumb or does succumb rather to the temptation of checking ball scores or text messages or whatever, and that I sometimes am tempted by that, and you just want to put it down when you don't need the references. So
Yeah, good point.
That's why we sit behind you. So we can see what the ball scores are.
No, they are not losing tonight.
They're not playing.
Case in point.
Is there anyone that wants to use our tablets? You can't take them home, but we'll have it here for you when you get here. So we got one, and you want anyone else? Two? Anyone who wants to use our tablets? Three? Okay. So we'll at least three.
If you arrive and you feel like you want one, just let me know and we'll
Yeah.
Would we still make paper copies of the agenda and the handouts available to the public?
Yeah, we would still have
At least one copy. We have at least one copy here for the public. So yes.
Right
we do.
there by Jim.
There it is. Yep.
So in regards to access, is there Wi-Fi here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Nolani and Gina can help you get access. If you bring your system here, we get you hooked up. Not a problem. Yeah. All right.
On that last point, I would just clarify there is Wi-Fi here. There's not Wi-Fi for the public. There was at the old district location on 19th Street, but since they moved here, there's not a public connection. So the public,
That's true.
there is not a whole lot of public here. But the public could be someone who's
What's that?
It's a secure network, so we
Oh.
have the ability to provide a password for it, but there's not an open network.
So if someone wants the password, we can do. Okay. Thank you for clarification. Thank you. Okay.
You don't and get people sitting in the
The word
parking lot.
once wasn't open network. Now you can still have access, but it would just need to provide you a
We
password.
gave you the password for it, yes.
Maybe just put like a sign that says Wi-Fi password
Yeah.
available upon request.
Yep.
In case the members of the
Yep.
public also want to do
Good.
paperless.
You got that? Yeah. Good suggestion. Yes, we will do that, definitely. Okay. Okay, I guess that's a go then. No, I don't see any complaints, so we're good with that?
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
It's
Thank you.
exciting.
Thank you. All right.
Second Wednesday of the month, that we're gonna have a second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Starting in August, which would August 8th. Okay, closing items. Any oral communications, director, committee, or member comments?
Director comments?
Director comments.
I'm never at a lack for words. Just want to take 5 seconds and thank you all again. To throw this mapping division thing at you at the very beginning was hard. I mean, and you all took this very seriously and did an outstanding job. And on behalf of the board, I just want to thank you for your efforts, and we can move forward. So thank you all very, very, and I know staff appreciates the work you put into it as well. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, thank you, President
I
Schaefer.
feel the same. I really do.
Schaefer, stick together.
Well, I would say the same thing, but in deference to what President Schaefer says. I might not.
Figures. Being the only.
Are there any comments from the rest of the committee or from the public? Hearing none, I would like to close the comments portion of the agenda. And with that, I would like to adjourn this meeting at 7:08 p.m. Great. We went through a big agenda in a